What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Bronx Attorney broadcast. I'm your host, Will Ferrero. Today we have Lindsay Langella on the podcast. Lindsay is a partner at Langella and Langella, and she is the chair of the associate board of the New York Trial Academy. Welcome, Lindsay. How are you doing today?
Hey, Will, I'm good. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, I saw recently on a Instagram post that you had. You're very good at keeping up with the trends, and one of the recent ones is like an important moment, right? And it said, your dad's going to ask you to work with him for one day, and it's important you say yes. So, how did that come to be that you became partners with your father?
Well, the short answer is I think it's something he always wanted. The longer answer is a vivid memory that I have is I'm not sure that they do this for kids anymore, but they definitely should bring it back. They used to have like take your daughter to work day or take your son to work day. So I went with my dad, whenever that was on the calendar. And I specifically remember one day he took me to court with him and he was handling a criminal matter for a client that he had. And my dad really was not doing, had never done criminal, right? But he was doing a client of his a favor. And we went to criminal court that day. And I remember I was like 10 or 11 years old and I see these younger attorneys and they have these buckets of files. And I said to my dad, I'm like, what are they doing? And he said, oh, those are the assistant district attorneys. They're prosecutors. And he looked at me and he said, one day that's going to be you. And I said, yeah, okay, sure. But it turns out that was actually how I started my career is I became a prosecutor in the Suffolk DA's office and spent some time there. And then eventually I wound up, in with my dad. But I remember my dad always guided me to find my own path. Like he never forced being a lawyer on me, which I always appreciated. Because I think at one point, when I was in college, I said to myself, do I really want to be a lawyer? Do I really want to go to law school? And you talk to a bunch of attorneys, and unfortunately, a lot of attorneys will be like, are you crazy? Don't go to law school. Don't be a lawyer. But then there's a lot of us that love what we do and strongly encourage it. When the younger attorneys or the younger prospective lawyers say, what do you think? Do you think it was worth it? And looking back on that memory and looking back on the mentorship that my dad had with me at such a young age made it an easy decision to come work with him and be his partner. And I'm really happy that I decided to do it. I never thought I would do it early on in my career the way that I did, but now I look back and I ask myself, I don't know why I didn't do this earlier.
Yeah. It's funny. I always, when I was in law school, some people would say, my husband's an attorney and he's been doing it for 30 years and he hates it. And he would tell you not to go to law school. And I would say, like, well, what does he do? And it was like he worked at, some insurance company or corporation and he did the same thing for 30 years. And it was like, well, he doesn't hate being a lawyer. He hates that one job that he's never, tried to do anything else. So
Exactly.
I tell people there's so many different things you could do in law. If you don't like the first thing you try, like try other things. That keep your options open. Be more, I don't know, open to trying those new opportunities because it's you don't have to stick with the same job for 30 years.
No, and it's interesting too because in our profession, you go to law school and it's not like you major in one specific area of law. I think that's something that a lot of people don't understand is you go to law school, you take the bar exam, you're tested on everything. It's really up to you to figure out what you're passionate about and what you're interested in, and then you have to get a job in that
Mhm.
field, in that specific practice area to learn how it's
Right.
done.
Yeah.
So there's so many possibilities available to you. And, if you have a little bit of a hunch with something that you're interested in, there's probably something in the area of law that correlates with what you're passionate about and what you like. And you just have to find that. And you can try a couple of times to figure out what works for you. But I say to everybody, find what resonates at the end of the day with what you're passionate about. Like I think for me, being that I was a college athlete and I've always been really competitive, for me, being in the courtroom was something I knew I needed to do. Like I knew I wanted to be a litigator. There was no way that I was going to be able to sit behind a desk all day and review contract work. Like I just knew that about
Yeah.
myself. But
Hmm.
there's something for everybody.
Right. Right. And you were in the DA's office for a little while too, right?
Yes, so that's where I started my career. So my law school, I went to Roger Williams in Rhode Island. So one of the questions that I get a lot from prospective students wanting to go to law school is, does it matter if you didn't go to a New York law school, but you want to
Hmm.
practice in New York? And I always say no, because
Right.
at the end of the day, it really matters where you're getting that first job, where you're getting that internship, and who you're making the connections with. So for me, my 2L summer, I was able to get an internship with the DA's office.
Hmm.
And then from there, I stayed in contact with them, and my school allowed the last semester of my 3L year for me to do a semester in practice. So
Oh, okay.
I fully moved back home. I was working 9 to 5,
Hmm.
essentially as an assistant district attorney. Like we had a student practice order, so I could go on the record. I was able to
Oh,
handle
wow.
hearings. I wasn't necessarily handling any of my own files. Like I was doing a
Hmm.
lot of discovery for the other attorneys, but I was in court all day. Like I got awesome exposure, and it 100% is what helps me get my job there.
Yeah. Yeah. And what was it always the plan to do that for a little bit and then start working with your father?
I loved being a prosecutor. I really, when I started, thought that I would be a lifer.
Hmm.
I thought I would not leave. But for me, I'm a very passionate person, and I had a hard time once I got into the Child Abuse and Domestic Violence Bureau separating. And I wasn't married at the time, I wasn't a mom at the time, but I saw the writing on the wall, and I knew that this was something I was not going to be able to do long term. So at that point, I really had to ask myself, okay, what is it that I like? What am I interested in? What makes me happy at the end of the day to practice and be a lawyer? The answer, like the simple answer, is I like helping people. So, how could I figure out how to do that in another area of practice? When I left, I went into insurance defense, and it was kind of something that more or less fell into my lap. And I was like, I knew needed to go from criminal to civil if I wanted to start working with my dad eventually. But that's really what showed me that I'm very much like prosecutorial plaintiff minded
Right.
instead of being on the defense side.
Hmm.
And, once I got the experience of learning personal injury law, learning how to handle files, learning discovery, really getting back into civil litigation because I hadn't done any civil law since law school, that's when I knew, okay, I can make, this leap of faith and go into practice with my dad.
And so what areas of law are you practicing in now?
So we do primarily personal injury. We don't do any medical malpractice. So
Hmm.
we'll handle car accidents, slip and falls, trip and falls, dog bites, assaults at a bar, all that realm of law that falls under personal injury, but that's not medical malpractice. In the beginning, when I came in with him, I was doing a little bit of criminal, minor misdemeanors and violations, but it takes up a lot of time. And now that I'm growing this practice and we have rapidly, like taken off in the past like couple of years since being here, which is awesome. It's just something that I can't do anymore. So I'll do traffic cases here and there for people, but
Right.
primarily like I'm only doing personal injury.
What do you attribute your growth to in the past couple of years?
So coming in with my dad, I felt very fortunate to come into a firm that was obviously successful. My dad's been practicing personal injury law for almost 40 years now. He's never worked with another attorney, it's only been him. So he's always been a solo practitioner. But he's old school. So,
Hmm.
I make the joke to everybody. There was a lot of renovating when I came in. I knew that we had to redo the website. We had to
Right.
work with an SEO team to get your Google business profile up. Because
Hmm.
let's be honest, the way that people are finding information, not just lawyers, is changing.
Right.
It's no longer, I mean, you're certainly not going to, the yellow book pages anymore. That
Hmm.
doesn't even exist. We've also a little bit lost touch of word of mouth and like, calling a family member and saying I was in a car accident
Right.
or going to wherever it may be. Everybody's like first instinct is to do an internet search now. So I thought to myself, being that we are more of this boutique level firm, how do you stand out amongst the conglomerate firms that have huge marketing budgets? And about a year and a half ago, I added the social media component to the firm and I decided to develop my personal brand. And that's been tremendously helpful because what it does is it gives people a second layer of connecting with you and finding if you're going to be somebody that they can relate to. So it adds in authenticity to who you are outside of just a Google search.
Yeah, it's funny. I had somebody just that was a new client that signed, and she just like mentioned offhand that she had like reviewed my Instagram, and she was like, "Yeah, I looked at your Instagram, so like, I know." And I'm like, "You know what? That I'm like a real person and not, like a AI or something like that." So, but I mean, I guess it made her feel better about working with me that she was able to, look and see not only, things that I've been doing in law, but also, things that, pictures of me with my friends at the Yankee game, whatever.
Yeah, and think about how awesome that is because I say to everybody, when you think about for us as personal injury attorneys, right? Like we're getting the contingency fee at the end of the case. So if you bring in at a minimum one case a year from social media, if you put some sort of marketing budget together, that one case that you brought in from an organic social media lead could pay for your marketing budget for a
Yeah.
while too.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
it is worth it. It is hard to put yourself out there. Like I still struggle with this because before I decided to add a personal brand to who I am, I don't want to say I could care less about social media, but I certainly wasn't the type of person that would care about a post that I put up or wanting to gain followers or likes or
Right.
whatever. Now it's like obviously you're under a bigger spotlight. Not that I have a huge following or anything, but
Mm.
it's out there, right? Like my family life is out there. What I do, my day to day work is out there. So it's hard. And I think I would encourage everybody in some way, shape, or form to do it because like I said, and we can both agree, if it brings in one case a year, it's totally worth it.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. You also recently, or I don't know if it is it still recent, it was last year, you became the chair of the associate board
Yeah.
of the Trial
I would
Academy.
say it's still pretty recent. I was officially appointed in June.
Okay.
I was surprised when they called me and asked me if I wanted it. Um, Part of me was like, "Are you sure that you want to pick me?" Right? Um, but I've always been a natural born leader. So in some ways, I think those qualities probably came through from my membership on the associate board. And it's been a great fit for me in terms of looking to bring in different programs that the associate board develops. And I think that the academy has something huge here with the associate board, especially for the younger attorneys, the newer attorneys, because a lot of trial lawyer associations are missing that piece of catering to the younger attorneys. And I
Mm.
think the Academy has done a really awesome job of making sure that the younger attorneys are heard and supported. And that's exactly what the Associate Board does. So for me, like I was extremely excited to take on that role because it's something that I really loved being a part of. And I feel like for my practice, especially because we are boutique and it's just my dad and I as the attorneys, I've developed genuine business friendships with a lot of people on the associate board. And outside of just being colleagues and sharing business with each other and running cases back and forth, like I feel like we genuinely are friends. We like, catching
Yeah,
up with each other
for
and
sure.
it's expanded your circle in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, there's so many people on the associate board that are so smart and they have experience in areas that might not be your main area of focus, and it's been a really good collaborative group. And and another thing I like about being on the associate board too is that you get invited to a lot of things with the larger board, the executive board, where you get to not only meet these people, but share ideas and kind of be, respected as an equal, even though they have 20, 30 years more experience than you have.
I agree. I don't feel like the attorneys that are on the executive board that have had so much more experience than us look down on us in any way. Like they really want to support us and foster our careers and share their knowledge with us. And again, I think that's something unique to what the academy does. Nothing against some of these other trial group organizations, but from my own experience being a member of the academy, like I know that I can reach out to any of the attorneys that are on the executive board or in the academy or call Andrew Smiley really quick and run a question by him and like the phone line's always open, right? Like the
Yeah.
door is literally always open. And I feel like that's a really unique part of the academy and the programs that they put together. Like they do the summer program where they really like dig into what's going on in terms of politics for the
Mhm.
year. New changes in certain laws, the amicus briefs. Now, we're putting together like the appellate case updates. So I think there's so many different areas and there's something for everybody.
Yeah. Do you have any, big goals or major projects that you're looking forward to this year?
Well, with the Academy, I'm super excited for Litigation Lab that the Associate Board put together. I feel like this is literally our baby for some of us because we recognized that we needed to come together and roundtable cases and issues that we had going on in our firms. So we've been, doing this as a trial run for, I want to say probably like 9 or 10 months now since we've
Mhm.
decided that we were actually going to do this. So we're launching Litigation Lab in 2 weeks, which is I would consider it to be like an open space for attorneys to come and share anything that they want to about their practice, right? It doesn't have to be like just I'm on trial and I want to share, like my opening statement with you. It could be that you have an arbitration coming up or you just signed this new case and you're not sure how to investigate it or what experts you might need. So that again is a program that I think presents such a unique aspect to the academy. And it was developed with the associate board. The second thing that I have coming up that I'm so excited for is I have become a co-founder for the Long Island Lawyers
Mhm.
networking group. And our launch is the end of January, January 28th. So I founded this group with two other colleagues of mine. And believe it or not, like I actually met them through social media networking. So again, like that's why I'll go back to the importance of being a presence on social media because had I not been on social media and not been in some of these networking groups that were geared more towards forming a personal brand, I would have never
Mhm.
met them. And the three of us all shared that what was really missing on Long Island was having an all women lawyers networking group where we could come together. And outside of just being able to bring business to each other, I think a lot of us were missing, we refer to it at the end of the day as filling our cups. Like when
Mhm.
you think about what you want to get out of going to a networking group, for me, if I don't get any business out of something, but I leave there feeling fulfilled in some way, whether it's in my role as an attorney, a mom, a wife, a friend, I feel like that time that I spent there was totally worth it. So that's going to happen at the end of January. And I'm excited to see where that goes because I think, even in just talking to the other co founders that started this with me, it was something that we were missing. And from putting it out there into the universe now and connecting with other women attorneys here on Long Island, it's also something that they were missing. So I'm excited for
Mhm.
that.
And so what types of events are you going to be doing?
So we're not 100% sure yet the direction that we totally want to go in. Like we don't know if we want to make it geared towards do we do a happy hour or do we, bring in speakers to every event. The first event that we're doing a lunch. So one of the attorneys that I'm doing it with, Macau Cantor, she works at Nixon Peabody. So Nixon
Mhm.
Peabody, their office in Melville, they decided to host the first event, which is great. So that's a lunch event. And I think we'll see based on the turnout that we get and the feedback that we get where everybody's looking to find like really the events that they want or the times that work best for them.
Mhm.
Because it's hard, I think, too, as women. A lot of these networking groups meet really early in the morning. And for
Mhm.
people that have children, it's nearly impossible to get out of your house, before 7 o'clock some mornings, especially if your kids are in school and you have to put them on the bus or you have to
Yeah.
drop them off at childcare.
Mhm.
So I'm really curious to hear like the feedback that we're going to receive as to what works for everybody. And we'll try to find what works for the majority.
Yeah, I mean that's something that I've never considered before. A lot of these networking groups meet like 8 to 9 in the morning when you might be dropping your kid off at daycare or putting them on the bus or something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah.
Hmm.
So you, you've talked about a lot, right? Entrepreneurship, representing your clients, the chair of the associate board, new networking group, and you're also a mom. How do you balance all these things?
I get this question a lot, and I think something that I dislike that I think comes across on social media is people lead these lives where it's very glamorous and
Mm.
nobody has issues and everybody is so happy. So I feel like when actually I just had a friend text me this morning and she was like, I just don't get how you do it all. And she's another attorney and a new mom.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't do it all. I have days where I struggle, but
Yeah.
something that has really helped me, I guess two things. The first is I've learned to compartmentalize certain roles and days that I have to show up to be those roles. I hate like thinking to myself and the pressure that I would put on myself that I have to be all of those roles in one 24-hour day. It's impossible. A lot of people may say differently. For me, the way that I've thought of it is okay, like today, I had this podcast with you. I have two business meetings this afternoon. So maybe today I'm really not a lawyer. I'm really
Hmm.
more of playing that business owner
Yeah.
entrepreneurial role. And I'm okay with that because
Hmm.
that means then I'll make a to-do list and come on Monday, I have to get back into being more of a lawyer.
Yeah.
Same thing with roles that I have as a mom. My family is always going to come first, but there are times where I have to miss bedtime. I hate it. I hate not being home for bedtime. That's like one of my like hard and fast rules. Like I need to be home for bath time at bedtime because it's important time with my daughter. But, like just this week, like we had a crazy week of bringing in new clients and clients work until 5:30 and can't
Yeah.
get to the office
Hmm.
until after 6 o'clock. That means those nights I have to miss bedtime. I just don't have a choice, and I have to accept the fact that that's okay. And the other thing that has really helped me get through, and this was something that somebody said to me when I was a new mom, you have to recognize that everything's temporary, the good and the bad. Right. So when you go through really hard days, you have to remember, like, okay, it's one day, or this is one bad week. This is one tough week. Like it passes. When you're in the moment, it feels like it's long and you're never going to get out of it, but you do.
Okay. And what would you say has been in lawyering, one of the major things that you've accomplished over the past few years?
I would say without getting into like the financial component to it, because I'm not somebody that throws that on my social media. I don't want to say I'm not a believer in it. It's just something that I decided when I developed my personal brand that I didn't want it to be about numbers. Because for me, what I do, of course you want to make money in what you do, right? Like I'm not trying to say that you don't want to. And thankfully, like my firm has been extremely successful. But for me, what I'm most proud of is being more than just somebody's attorney. And you said this earlier when you mentioned the client that you signed up and she found you on Instagram and you're like, "Oh, does this make me more of a real person?" I think people, I don't want to say they forget, but we are real people. Like we have family lives and hobbies and things that we enjoy doing outside of the practice of law. So every single day, like what I say to myself, any client that comes into my firm, I want them to recognize myself and my staff as more than just being their lawyers because dealing in personal injury law means that you are fighting for people that are going through possibly one of the hardest things they've ever experienced in their life. And when you think about what you do for your clients, you're in a small circle of people that know what they're going through. So I feel like being their lawyer means that I need to be somebody that's always going to be in their corner. And that's what makes me so proud in what I do. And it's something that I'll always walk away from knowing like, all right, I truly helped that person outside of maybe just being their lawyer. And a lot of people would feel it differently. They would feel like there needs to be separation there. But this is what's made me successful personally.
I think you see that a lot with, if you ever have a client that came over from another law firm and they're very upset about the communication aspect of it, or they come to you and they're like, I need help finding a new doctor or a new physical therapy office. And, I think a lot of people don't have that, interpersonal ability to kind of explain things in a way that the everyday person can understand. A lot of times, like doctors will, some doctors can't break it down so that your client can understand it, and your client doesn't want to feel, stupid by, asking too many questions or something like that. Like, I've had clients that I'll read their medical records and explain to them what it says, and they're like, "You explained that better to me than anybody at the doctor's office had, right?" And it's just because, you took the time to really make sure they understood it. So I agree with you. I think that's super important.
People remember that. That's like that client will then continue to send you business because for them, you not only made yourself accessible and available, but you added the personability factor into it, right? And nothing against the way that other attorneys may handle things, but if that's what works for you and that's what starts to bring in business for you, run with it because that's something that makes you unique in a big pool of personal injury attorneys.
Hmm. So, if anybody wants to hire you as their attorney, or they want to join the associate board or the new networking group on Long Island, where can they find you? How do they reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on the Long Island Lawyerist on Instagram. That's where I post a lot of my daily life as a lawyer, a mom. We do some entertaining Instagram posts also. You could always send me a message there. You can call me 631-348-9500, or you can always send me an email. I pretty much always make myself available and I'm always willing to have that conversation, even if it's something that I can't necessarily help you with. Will always try to put people in touch with the person that can.
Great. Well, thanks for coming on the podcast today and talking with me, and I'll see you soon.
All right, well, talk soon. Thanks for having me.